Hey everyone, Todd from Sideshow Effects once again, and in this video I'm going to go over the installation process of our color panel for Davinci Resolve for the Stream Deck XL device, and this is the Macintosh version. I'll demonstrate how we go through the entire setup process, and I'll give a quick little overview of what this pack offers. Once you're all set up and running, you'll be able to control almost all of the color control parameters within the Davinci color page. You'll be able to control all the primary controls, log, HDR, curves, tracker, Dolby Vision, etc. All of these have been made available to you in this pack. So once you've downloaded the pack from Sideshow Effects and you unzip it, this is what you're going to see. Now there is a PDF guide in the pack that goes through in quite a bit of detail this installation process, as well as the navigation for the entire profile. The PDF in your pack is always the most up-to-date, so I suggest that you look through that first and then come back to this video for additional reference, as the PDF will always be the most up-to-date. Right, so the first thing we're going to do is, because we have a few keyboard commands that are present in this profile, you'll need to load our key command file, and we have it located here in your pack. It's just this file here. It's version 6. If you have another one of our Davinci packs, you can operate it with this key command. This is the most recent version, version number 6, and any of our other packs that you may have will still work with this updated key command file. Now, how we install this, we go into Davinci Resolve. We'll go up into keyboard customization. You click the ellipses here, import preset. You'll navigate to your downloaded folder, go into the keyboard command, and you'll double click this, or just click it once and say open, and it will install. And then you will say, you see I have it here, version 6, and then you hit save. I already have it loaded. And then you'll have the correct keyboard file associated. Now the next thing we want to do, go back to your downloaded folder. So we've developed this plugin for the Stream Deck device to work with the Mac system. So we need to have this installed. Simple. All you need to do is, with your Stream Deck software open, you'll double click this file and it will load in our plugin. Now the next thing we need to do is load the profile in itself. And if we open up the profiles folder, I'll expand this out. You can see we have several profiles here. The way this profile works is it works on XY coordinates of your mouse position. So let me demonstrate. I'm going to load up the primaries here, and let's just use temperature as an example. You can see that I can hover over different parts of the interface and it'll allow me to control those parts. Well, what we need to do is we need the profile to understand where your mouse is, so that it can always jump to that location to allow you to adjust that parameter. This is called an XY coordinate, based on the top part. The top left corner of your screen is always 0, 0, going down to the bottom of whatever that would be your full resolution of your display. So we would need to let our profile know that this location is where we want this mouse to go when we tell it we want to adjust temperature. So the reason for the different profiles here is we have pre-built several different resolutions that already have those coordinates programmed. Now let's assume that I don't have a resolution that's listed in one of our pre-built profiles. I would need to load the generic. Currently my display is set to 1920 1080. So knowing that, I would be able to double click this profile, load it into my Stream Deck device, and all of these parameters will be correctly mapped to my display. Now I'll get to that in a second, but I want to just detail, if you're unsure of what your resolution is, just go to your Apple menu, go to About This Mac, and we can click on Displays. Depending on which operating system you're working in, you can click on Displays, and this one is demonstrating that I'm a 1920 1080 display at this moment. You can also, if you don't see it there, depending on your OS, once again, go to System Preferences, go into Displays, and if you've scaled your monitor, you can select, you can see which resolution you're in, or if you're in Monterey, you can click on Display Settings, And as you can see in this example, I have two displays. This is my primary display, and I can mouse over the one that's highlighted in blue, and it will show my current resolution. On this particular screen, I'm 2048 by 1152. So once you know your resolution, you'll know which one of these you'll need to load. Now, if you don't find your resolution amongst these ones we've pre-built, then you will load the generic, and I'll come to that in a second. But since we know this is 1920 by 1080, I already have it loaded here, but I would double click this one with my Stream Deck software open, and it would load up this profile. Now when we go to Davinci, since these are pre-built, I can go to Primaries and take the example of temperature. I'll click temperature and it jumps directly to that value. And how I adjust it then is I would use the left and right controller to control that value. And because this is a pre-built profile, any one of these can be instantly clicked on, and we can adjust that value immediately. Now let's assume that I don't have a resolution that's listed in one of our pre-built profiles. I would need to load the generic. I'm going to double click this to load it, and it loads in the generic version of the profile. Now I want to point out we're going to be adding in additional profiles as we go along, so in future updates the resolution you're working in may be available as a pre-built profile. So we've got the generic profile loaded up, but you're going to find, because you're not using a pre-built resolution that we've provided, you will need to set these XY coordinates yourself. It's a very simple process, and you only need to program the ones that you feel you're going to use, and you can always program them later. You can add them at any time. And if you're running the generic profile and you are programming your own actions, you can use dual screen. You can have things wherever you want, because the coordinates you're going to be recording are going to be exclusive to your particular workstation. And as long as you keep that layout the same as when you recorded these positions, you'll always have access to these functions. If you're using one of our pre-built resolutions, you need to have the UI set to the default layout. Now you can go to Workspace and press Reset UI, or from the main menu, you just hit Reset UI, and it puts everything into place so that it's properly aligned. Now you see that Reset UI shuts the scopes off. That doesn't affect us. You can leave the scopes on, and you can even fly them out if you want. But that's an important step. The next important step that you need to do is go to your project settings, and you'll need to go to color management, and if you're running the studio version, you'll need to turn on Dolby Vision, HDR10, and HDR Vivid. When you do, those three items get lined up here in the header, and it pushes these items down. This is how we've programmed the pre-built profiles, is with these three items on and these items pushed down. If you're running the free version of Davinci, you will not have these three items available to you, and so these headers will move up here and therefore be misaligned. That is why, even though you would be running a pre-built profile that we've already mapped, if you're running the free version, you'll just have to reprogram these locations. Now, if you have one of these pre-built resolutions, it's important to know that if you're running a dual screen setup, it does change the positioning of some of the items, and therefore you will need to use a generic profile. In addition, these were all built with the studio version of Davinci. So if you're running the free version of Davinci in one of these resolutions, you can still use one of the pre-built resolutions, but you will need to program these header keys here. Everything else in the pre-built profile will work down below, but these ones will be misaligned, and I'm going to demonstrate why that is in a second. Now the last thing that we need to do has to do with the dock. Now I've got the dock on auto hide, so it does not move the interface, but if I go over to the system preferences and I go into the dock and I turn off auto hide, you can see it moves my interface. So a lot of these controls will be misaligned to what we've programmed for the pre-built profiles. So you can do one of two things. You can auto hide the dock like I had there, or if you prefer to always have the dock visible, you will then need to maximize the Davinci screen, and that puts it back to where we need it to be. So you'd need to run Davinci in the Mac full screen version if you like to have your dock always visible. Now if you have your dock auto hiding like I do here, and you prefer to work in a full screen version by pressing the green button here, you can do that. It does not change the positioning of any of these items. It actually stretches exponentially. The more you get to the top of the UI, it stretches more. So it pretty much leaves these alone, leaves them in their same location. So that's if you have auto hide on of your dock. You can choose to run it in full screen or not. It isn't going to change our parameters that we've recorded for these pre-built profiles. So in summary, if you are running the studio version with a single monitor and your display resolution matches one of the ones we've already pre-built in the package, you can use one of those pre-built that matches your resolution as long as you reset the UI and you either have the dock on auto hide, or if the dock is not auto hide, you would run it in full screen mode. Plus, you would need to turn on Dolby Vision, HDR10 Plus, and HDR Vivid. Now, if you're running the studio version with a dual or single monitor and your resolution does not match, you would load up the generic profile and you would then go through and assign the coordinates for the keys that you want. If you're running the free version with a single monitor and your display resolution matches one of the pre-built ones that we've provided, you can use that pre-built profile as long as you reset the UI and you use dock auto hiding, or you have the auto hide off and you maximize your screen. In this situation, you would only need to assign the coordinates for those header keys that would get moved down because you don't have the Dolby Vision HDR10 and HDR Vivid, which pushes those items down. All the rest of the controls would be programmed for you. Now, if you have the free version and you're running a dual or a single monitor and your resolution does not match, then you use the generic profile and you would assign the keys that you want. Okay, so how do we record a position? So what we can do is we can mouse over. You can see when I mouse over any one of these parameters or the values themselves that my cursor turns to a double arrowhead. That's indicating that it's now live, and if I press the left key on my mouse and slide left or right, I'm going to be able to adjust that value. So in the case of temperature, so I'm going to hover over the text, leave my mouse there. I'm going to go into Primaries on my Stream Deck, and you can see it's the temperature function that we're trying to program here. I simply press and hold until you see the green check mark. That position has now been recorded. Now when I move the mouse off, I'm working something else. I want to adjust temperature. I hit temperature and it jumps to that location, and I can use the controller keys to adjust the value. So that's how simple it is to program, and it really won't take you very long to get this all set up, and the coordinates that you record are saved in the profile themselves. So if I want to go to tint, I just hover over tint, press and hold, done, contrast, press and hold, pivot, press and hold, mid details, press and hold. There's those lines all done, and so I can immediately bounce around all these and adjust them very quickly. Now in the case of the color wheels here, we're going to position our cursor right in the center of the color wheel, and we'll press and hold the lift. And now when I want to adjust my color wheel, and I can go up and down, and this is the only occasion in which you would use the up and down keys, is with the color wheels. And you would do the same for the gamma gain and offset in this section. Now the master wheels, which are these along the bottom here, position right in the center if you can, over top of the master wheel. This is the lift master wheel. And I press and hold, and I recorded that position. And instead of using the left and right here, the master wheels are the only one that use these master wheel controllers here. So you can see I can now increase and decrease my master wheel function here. And you would do the same for the gamma gain and offset. There's a couple of additional buttons here. You'll see that we can program the primaries itself here. So by clicking and holding this primaries, that allows us to jump to this part of the interface in Davinci. So let's just say that I'm working in, let's say, my RGB mixer, and I want to move and do some primary adjustments. I would hit primary. Now that changes our folder within Stream Deck, but it does not change our interface. That's why it's a two-step process. So once I've stepped into the primaries folder on the Stream Deck device, I would then, once I programmed it, click on the primaries, and that allows me to jump into that section in Davinci. So once again, with it all programmed, let's say I'm on RGB Mixer, and I want to go into primaries. I click here, and there I can start my adjustments. Now there's another key we want to program here. This is for the color wheels. And we can press and hold that, and then one over other color bars. Press and hold that, and now we can bounce in between having color bars or color wheels adjustments. And you'll see that on our profile we have primary bars. So if we click on that, we have a whole new section here, and this allows us to control all of the individual channels for the lift, gamma, gain, and offset. So we would mouse over the appropriate value. In this case, this is lift luma, press and hold, and then we do lift red, lift green, and lift blue. And now we can jump between these at any time and make our adjustments. And you do the same for the gamma, gain, and offset. And you'll see there's a reset all at the top corner here. We can just position over the reset all, press and hold until that's programmed. And then we also have our primary wheels and our bars the way we had done on the previous page. So now we can quickly jump to whichever one we want, and we can reset our grade from there. And there you have it. That's your primaries. Would be done if you've gone through and just quickly programmed each of those parameters. So you can continue on your own. It's pretty self-explanatory as to what keys go with what part of the interface. If you need further clarification, we've detailed everything in the PDF that's included in the pack. You can refer to that. But now I'm just going to show you a couple little extras that we've thrown in. So in addition to those color controls, we've also put in a load save memory. So all of these are available. We put in printer lights, allow you to access printer lights. And we have a custom section. Now this allows you to program any parameters that you want to be able to control. So let's say, for example, that I put an effect in here. I'm going to put, say, Gaussian blur. And let's say I want to be able to control my horizontal and vertical strength. So for these, you can see that the text is not live. It's the slider or the integer. Never do the slider. So always do the integer. So we're going to mouse over the integer. I'm going to press and hold this first key. And then maybe I'll do the one underneath so it makes sense to me. Press and hold for the vertical strength. I'm just going to deselect the same horizontal and vertical. Now, if I want to adjust the horizontal, I can use the controller. And I can make those adjustments. You can label this. I can write in horizontal blur so I know, and this one vertical blur so I know what these are. and they will always go to those spots for me when I'm working with my Gaussian blur. Now you of course can move these around to however makes sense to you. It's just a simple drag and drop. Now one other thing I'd like to point out is you can see the controllers that you've been using here. We have the speed slider available to us. So if you find that the sensitivity is a little too strong or not strong enough for your tastes, you can go in on any one of these controllers and you can adjust the speed. Just make sure that when you adjust the speed of the left or the down, that the same speed is selected for the right. If you're moving back and forth between up and down, left and right, you kind of want them to have the same speed so it makes sense to you. So one more thing that we've added in here is you'll notice we have this grading button. If you're familiar with our product line, we have our Davinci Pro Pack that gives you access to all of the commands via shortcuts in Davinci, except for these color parameters. These color parameters are the only things that we include exclusively for this color panel pack, but all the other shortcuts such as in the editing room, media management, all those are available on our Pro Pack. Now in our Pro Pack we do have a color grading section that gives us control over the nodes. It's pretty much everything you'd find in the color menu here and some in the view menu. We have that whole section in the Davinci Pro Pack, but we've lifted it and taken just that grading section from that pack and placed it in your color panel. So you now have access to all these tools in the grading section from the Pro Pack. So we have all the node controls. If we're going to wipe and overlay, this is something new that we're just adding into the Pro Pack. If you're in Davinci and you've in the color space and you're using reference wipe, for example, we can now just program our mouse. Let's just place it in the center here. And I'm going to press and hold this target. And now, anytime that I'm working with my image overlays here in the wipe mode, I can click on this button. It'll pop me to the center. And then I can adjust and use my Stream Deck to move my wipe back and forth. Now if I have a vertical wipe, for example, I can use the up and down to control that as well. So just a little bit of a handy little feature we've been able to throw in. Back out, you can see we have all the other controls available to us. We also have the fixed node trees. If you're not familiar with the fixed node trees, these are pre-built node trees that are all labeled that will build the whole structure for you, and they're then ready for your grades. So if I just want a simple 4-node structure, it will build that for me and label them, and then I can start grading in those individual nodes. And we have 9 different node structures all the way up to an 18-node structure available. Just at the press of a button, it will build those for you. And we can go in and we have some more overlays. We have our full, half, and quarter printer lights. So everything you need to operate in the color page of Davinci is all here between the grading page and our color panels. So that's it. That's everything we've rolled into the color panel pack for the Macintosh. I hope it's going to help you guys in your color sessions, make you work faster, more creatively. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon.